I can't wait to get some winter interest into my garden. It's late January and a lot of things have gone to sleep, so it's going to be great to get a punch of color. There's a lot of different flowers that you can put in the winter. In the mild climate that I live in, we can put ranunculus and snapdragons and pansies, all of them full of color. So we're going to go through and I'm going to show you one particular secret that I do that I'm really surprised more people don't do it. And we're going to make a beautiful bouquet in these lovely pots. Hi, I'm Sonia with Suburban Gardening. I have these wonderful pots that we're going to fill up with beautiful flowers today, but there's a couple things we're going to need to do first. There is one drain hole in these pots, just one, and I need to put something in front of it so it doesn't get stopped up with dirt, so we're going to do that. And I'm also going to put my special Suburban Gardening compost in here. I have a thing about changing out my dirt every year. I just don't find it's necessary. It seems to be kind of expensive. So we're not going to do that. And I'm going to show you how I amend the soil so it can keep regenerating itself for at least a couple of years. Now these pots are 16 by 16, so it's a pretty good sized pot, and I can fit a lot of stuff in here. Luckily, I'm dealing with an empty pot and I don't have to dig out a bunch of stuff, and that's only because about a month ago, I completely emptied these pots. They had irises and agapanthus in them. They were so pot bound, I practically had to chisel them out. But now those plants have gone to a different home and we're gonna pot up these beautiful big pots. Right down there in the bottom is this one little drain hole for this entire pot. It really isn't enough. There should be like 3 of them in this pot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of styrofoam and I'm going to lay it over that hole. And when I put the dirt in, that will make like a little open area under there and hopefully cause this pot so we can drain much easier. I'm hoping that will keep that drain hole free of debris, and that way this pot will be able to drain if it gets overwatered. I filled this pot up about halfway full. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my Suburban compost in here. And this is what's going to keep the soil regenerating itself for the next couple of years. And that way I won't have to keep replacing my potting soil. I did a video on suburban composting. You can check that out. And this is going to be breaking down in the soil over the next couple of years, and it's going to be adding food for the microorganisms, and it's going to be breaking down into food for the plants. I have this beautiful pot all filled up with dirt. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put these beautiful flowers in, but I also want to add some fertilizer. So I have some slow release fertilizer that will help these plants just get all the nutrients they need. So if you think about this pot, basically it's got absolutely fresh new potting soil, and I want to just remind you, never put garden soil inside of your pot. It's too robust, it's just too full of nutrients, let's say, because garden soil needs to be mixed into dry, not so healthy soil, and it'll be way too toxic and powerful for your poor little roots of these plants. So we put in the potting soil, I put in a layer of the Suburban Garden compost, and now we're going to add a layer of organic time-release fertilizer. There should be a lot going on inside this pot for the next year or 2 to come, and I won't have to keep changing out my soil. So this beautiful thing right here are snapdragons. I grew these from seeds. I had over 100 of them, so I'm just now placing them all over the garden. And I did go over to Armstrong Nursery and I picked up some ranunculus and some pansies as well. But I had a couple of other things that I grew from seed, and that was some nasturtiums and some hollyhocks. So we're going to add all of those into the pot. I wanted to show you before we get started planting these poor little roots. They're absolutely pot bound in here. Let me pop one out. Do you see how just compacted they are in there? We need to rough these guys up a little bit before we put them in the ground because they need to be able to spread their little roots there. Let me show you this ranuncula. Oh my goodness. This thing is just super pot bound. It's amazing to me that they keep growing like this. Before we get started with the big pot, I wanted to show you just real quickly about a smaller pot that I have. Here's our beautiful soil. Okay. Now this is a hanging pot that I have, and it's kind of a catch-all. I grew this geraniums by seed. This alyssum was from seed. It's not doing too good, but I have a wonderful petunia here. It's one of my favorite colors. It's yellow, and I grew it from seed, and I'm so excited that it's making it through the winter. And then I have a strawberry that I grew from one of the runners of my other plant. But this looks pretty tired, and I don't know, it's just not a very good looking pot. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dig down in here. I'm gonna drop a few pansies down in here. And that way, it'll really perk it up for the winter time. But all of this stuff's gonna grow like mad in the spring and the summer. But until then, I think the pansies will do really well. Before I put the pansies in, I need to make sure I get some fertilizer down in there. So I've got my plant tone, and I'm going to liberally put some down in there. The reason why is because I know that all of these other plants are going to be wanting some too. So I'm just gonna really rough it up around in there. And then I'm gonna drop my pansies in. Try to get a couple of different colors. Oh, they're gonna be really happy down in here. I think I'll add a little bit of soil. There we go. Now I know it's gonna be raining here in the next week or so, but I'm gonna water this in really good. That way all those good nutrients will get down in there. And then I'm gonna hang it back up, and it's gonna be just beautiful. We have our wonderful pot full of fresh soil, which is so exciting. I want to put some of this biotone down in there because it'll really get the roots to start growing super strong. So the biotone is great when you're repotting something that's first time planting. Biotone is also a time release fertilizer, but it also reacts with the microorganisms in the soil to improve the soil. So that will be going on as well. Now the other thing I'm going to add is a little bit of plant tone, and that's just a topper to make sure that these roots get as much food as they need. I have 3 pots that are identical, 16 by 16, but I don't want to pot them all exactly the same. They're going to be similar so they have good balance, but they're all going to have a few different things in them as well. And I'm also going to show you that little secret that I do too. But I love these ranunculus, and they're going to be one of the base plants that are in here. And the thing that you want to remember, rough those up a little bit, is that you want all of the plants that we're going to put in, they're going to have different size root balls. Let me see if I can get this one out of here. See how they have different size root balls? But we want them to all be exactly the same height on the level of the soil. So this one I need to dig down a little deeper. And I want to keep it at least 2 inches below the lip, so I know when I water it that I can soak it and the water won't run out. All right, so here's our ranunculus. Now these guys clearly need to be built up a little bit. So I'm going to put this guy up kind of high. And you can go through and take off these yellow leaves if you want to. I usually do because it makes the plant look a little better. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put in the snapdragons and the pansies. Aren't these beautiful? I absolutely love snapdragons. Some of the snapdragons that I planted this year, I harvested the seeds from other snapdragons that I had. This soil is nice and damp, and when I water it, it's going to absorb all of that good water. You never want to plant any type of plant in dry soil. It makes the roots struggle a little bit. I'm going to put these three on the other side. Look at this one. I'm pretty sure that that's a carrot seed that accidentally got in there. It's not hurting anything. I want to put the tall ones sort of in the middle. I think it's going to be really fun to watch how these perform. This is a very leggy nasturtium that I grew from a seed. I actually propagated it from some other plants, and I'm going to put it in the ground just to see what happens. I'm going to dig a hole for it very deep. Very deep. I can tell that it'll grow roots from these little nodes right here. It'll be fun to see if it does any good. So the hollyhock is something I grew from a seed. It's winter, so it's not really doing much, but this thing is going to come back like a roaring lion in the springtime. So I want to get it in there so it'll be ready to go and I won't have to fuss with it. You can see that it doesn't have a very good root base yet, but it will, and it'll probably end up taking over this whole pot. Oops, back in there. Little deeper. Let's take some of this off, I think. Perfect. All right, he's just gonna be hiding down in there in the winter time. All right, 2 pansies. Pansies are just great winter color in my area. Oh boy, these things are just so root bound. Okay, get them stuck down in here. This pot is plenty big enough to handle all of these plants, especially with all of the good food that I put down in there. And I try not to overfeed because it's wasteful, but that's organic time-release fertilizer, and I think that it doesn't ever burn the roots or anything like that. Okay. Isn't this fun? Okay, I got 2 more special things I want to show you. This is the little secret I wanted to share with you. And I don't know why more people don't do this. Maybe they do and I just don't know about it. But I did a project with some Dutch irises just yesterday, and I had a few left over. And I know that they don't get quite gigantic. So I'm going to take these bulbs, these Dutch iris bulbs, and I'm going to push them down into the soil about 2 inches. And that way, this one's a teeny tiny little baby, if you can even see that one. And that way, it'll be like a little surprise. I'll have Dutch irises growing in my pots. So I'm going to put one over here too. The other thing that I like to do is I like to drop a few little seeds into my pots. Now, eventually, these snapdragons and these pansies and even this nasturtium they're going to be tired in the ranunculus. And I love it to have little plants popping up all over where I didn't have to go out and buy anything. I just put some seeds in. I've got some California poppy seeds, and these things are really prolific in my area. So I'm just going to take a handful, just a few, and I'm going to sprinkle them down in here. And then I'm going to press them in. Don't cover them, just press them. Think about how they grow in the wild. Nobody comes around and squishes dirt over them. And they're very, very hardy, very drought tolerant. And this soil is going to drive them crazy. They're going to grow so big. So I'm going to sprinkle some of these California poppy seeds in both of the pots. I bet you I put about 15 seeds. If it's too many, I can always come and pluck some out, so it's not a problem. All right, the other thing that we do that's really fun, and I love these pots for this reason. Let's say that maybe this front part's not doing too good and these pansies are looking pretty bad. As a matter of fact, usually when I pot something like these pansies, I pick most of the flowers off because I like for the roots really to get in there and then they can start pushing out some new flowers. But I just can turn them just like that. And now all of a sudden the ranunculus are in the front, and then we have a beautiful backdrop of the snapdragons. The last important thing we need to go over is irrigation. It's so important for these plants to get plenty of water. I have run a black tube along my wall here. This is where the pots sit all year long. They're too big to keep moving around. But I have drip irrigation that goes inside of these pots. So they get watered when I'm not thinking about it or I just don't have time. I know it's going to be raining in the next couple of days, and that's why it's so exciting to get those seeds down in the soil, because that rain just seems to perk them right up. So that's it. I feel pretty confident that I've set these pots up that they'll be able to feed these plants for at least the next couple of years. I'll just come through and pull out the plants that have withered away. They're just out of season, and I'll replace them with new ones. I might even come by and put a couple of daffodils down in here because that will look so beautiful in the spring. I really hope that this gave you some good ideas, that you can put this to practice in your own garden and give you some confidence that we don't constantly have to be changing out soil and spending so much in our garden. We can really make it work for us, and we can make the microorganisms and all the dirt work together to keep feeding these plants. So thanks to you guys for stopping by. I'll see you next time.